Today's topic, interracial dating, and whether or not black men and black women have to be with each other. Let's get it. Emmanuel Acho, one of my favorite YouTubers, does a lot of content centered around different kinds of social and political issues, mainly about race. He has a series called Uncomfortable Conversations with a Black Man. On one of his episodes from July, he has on Rachel Lindsay and her partner and another couple. In one part of the interview, he says the following to Rachel.
Emmanuel, as a black man, do you feel betrayed when you see a black woman with a white man? And I might not necessarily say I feel betrayed, but I feel some type of way. 2017, I'm watching The Bachelorette, and I see finally they chose a black woman. They chose a black queen, and I'm thinking to myself, surely she's gonna pick a black king. But all I see is Rachel picked a guy who is seemingly white. I felt some type of way about that.
I do think that this is a sentiment that a lot of people do share. I think on the very toxic side of it, we've seen videos where people have made very inappropriate comments to people in interracial relationships.
Excuse me? Y'all together, like in an intimate relationship? Really?
What's up?
You couldn't find no black woman? Like you had to go that low to the lowest rung of humanity? Well, what's wrong with you? Like, you couldn't find no black woman?
Now, on the one hand, I think there is a genuine argument to be made about the importance of being with someone from your same race. I think that falls along the lines of a cultural understanding. A lot of people feel that they don't want to be with a partner where they have to explain everything about their background. They're kind of just going to get it. Because you're black, you've probably gone through a lot of the same things that I have. And there isn't going to need to be that extra layer of, I have to explain all this to you. And I think we all do that outside of romantic relationships, even with our friendships, right? We look for people that we share similar values with, that we share similar experiences with. And so I don't think that impulse is necessarily wrong. Baked into the notion of you are black, therefore you're going to understand my cultural experience and we're going to get each other, is this notion that just because you hold a certain identity, you also hold a certain value system or a certain set of experience. You know, not to roast the dude, like everyone was super down for Kanye, and then he put on the red hat, right, and started saying all this MAGA stuff, and we were like, that's cat, bro. Clearly then some part of being black, right, isn't just, or this version of black isn't just about looking like this, right, having this skin color. It's also about having a certain set of values, and that isn't necessarily a given just because of what you look like or what your identity is, right? There's a disconnect between your identity and your value system, or there can be, rather. But I think what gets tricky about this is every single part about me filtered through the lens of my race, right? Am I this way because I am black, or is there some part of me that is just who I am, regardless of the social context, cultural context of my race? It's a very hard question. I don't think there's a very clear answer to that, but I do think that is something worth thinking about, because the answer to that question reveals whether or not it's super important for us to be thinking about race in the particular context of romantic relationships as a deciding factor of whether I should be with this person or not. I think related to the idea of fitting into the category of blackness, if you are like me and you grew up being called an Oreo, feeling like you're not black enough, you can kind of feel like, well, if I date a black person, then I am going to be black enough, right? That's a way for me to show off, like, look, I'm black, I'm with someone who's black. Right? Other black people have told me, yeah, I've dated folk who are black as a way of kind of confirming that part of my identity. I understand where that impulse comes from, and I'm not kind of looking down at that from a judgmental standpoint. Some part of that, though, I think can be seen as an almost kind of tokenization. The reason that you're in that relationship with that person in that case is not because you are viewing them as a total person, right, that is full of all these different facets. It's, I'm dating you because you're black, and that is doing something for me, right? That's confirming some part of my identity that's important. I think there is some aspect of that is almost a little bit ironic. We as black folk want people to see us as the full versions of ourselves, right? Don't just look at me as this, right? I'm also more than that, but I think we can also still turn around and look at our brothers and sisters in that light. I don't think that makes you, a demon or a bad person for doing that kind of thing. I think it just more so reveals that it's important for us to fit into these different categories of identity and what we're willing to do to fit into those categories of identity. There's also an element of shame that comes with not dating someone within your race, within the Black community. Identity is kind of split into two categories: how you view yourself, but also how others view you. You can hopefully to a large degree control that first part, right? How you view yourself, but you can't really control how others view you. Part of that shame comes from when you internalize that expectation or that view that others have placed on you. You should be with a Black person is something that you can internalize into yourself and think, yeah, I guess that is something that I should do. And when you aren't doing that, you then think, am I not good enough as a Black person? I think at the moment we start prescribing things for other people and saying, you must do this because of your racial background or your cultural background, we start to get into hairy territory where we're not letting people actually express their autonomy, right? Actually express their individuality. You have given up some of your liberty, some of your autonomy, some of your ability to choose freely for yourself to be a martyr or to do this thing for your race. And I think that kind of self-sacrifice makes sense when it comes to social justice as a larger issue, right? Prison reform, voting rights, police brutality, all that kind of stuff, right? Putting yourself on the line for those things, I think makes sense. But for something as tender and as intimate and passionate as love, to make it about this function of an identity feels like we're giving up a little bit too much in my mind. There is this rhetoric about Black men, or vice versa, but mostly Black men, holding Black women down. Black women are considered the least desirable by social standards in terms of dating. And a lot of that has to do with a number of stereotypes as well as colorism. Colorism being the idea that just like, bro, the darker you are, the worse you have it, basically. I've linked some stuff in the description if you want to have a much more in-depth primer on colorism. In addition to that, Black women are also seen as angry, hyper-emotional, hypersexual, and not necessarily suitable for a long-term romantic engagement. And so I think part of the idea is it's already hard enough for Black women, and now brothers are going out and being with women that are not Black. Oh, and I already know I'm gonna get in trouble for this, but I'm just gonna say it anyway. I feel like affirmative action makes sense. I didn't go where you thought I was going with that. I already know. We can point to very real historical, social, political practices as well as laws that have barred Black people from being able to succeed economically, socially, interpersonally. Slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow, and even after Jim Crow, redlining and all that kind of stuff, right? So it makes sense that we put policy into place that is going to right the economic wrongs that we have seen over time for Black folk. Which then leads me to think about, okay, do we then need a kind of affirmative action for Black women where it's like, for all of these, very real historical, cultural reasons, we can point to why you're considered the least desirable of all these dating categories. So to do something about that, here is a Black king for you. I don't think anyone's suggesting that, but it makes me think about, well, what is the solution to this? You're a Black woman, white dude comes up to you, he says,
yo, you know what? I think Black women are the least attractive.
And you tell him off, and you're like, you know what, you're wrong for these, all these reasons, right? And he's like,
huh, you're right. I am now down to date you.
And it's just like, wait, you were just saying all this whack shit about me, and now you're willing to be in an intimate relationship with me? I think that kind of shift from place of ignorance or racism to place of enlightenment in the context of a romantic relationship feels odd to me, because that's what we want to have happen on a larger social scale for job employment, college admission, police bias, all of these things, right? We want people to go from you are ignorant to now you're not. And it wouldn't be jarring for someone to come back to us in one of those other spheres and say, you know what, I was wrong and I've learned something. But when it's about dating, it's like, again, imagine white dude just being like,
hey, you know what? I used to think that all Black women were freaking hoochie mamas, but now, man, I'm slinging that schmeat everywhere I go with Black women.
It's like, it's a little sus, you know what I'm saying? Maybe another way of kind of summarizing this piece about education being brought from a place of ignorance to a place of enlightenment is, how would you gauge someone's authenticity? How are you gonna be like, I know for a fact that you aren't doing this weird tokenization thing anymore because how, right? Because how? Do they need to like take a test like, all right, King, You scored a 75% on being able to love black women. That's a passing grade, bro. Come on, you know, like, yeah, like what does that look like? You know what I mean? I want to hear from you guys. What do you think the role of race is in dating? Is it something that should be a determining factor in choosing your partner? What do we do about the position that black women on, you know, a very high level find themselves in terms of their desirability in the dating world? I want to hear from you guys. I'll see you next time.